All right, hello everyone, and welcome in to the Resurrection Cup qualifier results and round of 32 Mappool showcase. We are here with the placements of all, I think it's 39 teams that have
41,
played in the
41.
41 teams that have played in the qualifiers. We just had a couple teams finish up a lobby, so I wasn't sure the exact number. But it is time. We are ready to go. I am Dio. I'm here with iFlame for the qualifiers results, and then we'll be bringing in Exia for the round of 32 map pool showcase.
Yeah, let's get right into it. I believe we are going to start with the DNFs, the teams that did not qualify, sadly. First team is going to be Araz Shofa. This is a team of 6 digits. They did about as you'd expect.
Yep. So hope you had fun playing. Not going to be qualifying, but hope you had fun playing the qualifiers. We'll move on to the next team.
Yep. We're going to be going through the DNFs pretty quickly, and then as we get higher into the seeding, we'll spend a little bit more
Not
time
the
on the
femboy
teams.
hooters. Oh my god.
Oh no.
Anyway, this team did slightly better, but still a pretty low average score overall. Good score on Nomad 1 and Hidden 1. They about end there. So hope you had fun playing femboy hooters.
The squad. We've got a 5-player team. Again, they had some decent scores. They got a couple of placements above 40. The number 36 DT3. But yeah, that's about all.
All right, next up, the DD Rankers, otherwise known as Rankers. Once again, pretty good scores on Nomad 1, Hidden 1. Some okay scores on some other maps as well. The DT2, the Hard Rock 1, the Hard Rock 2, also a very good score. Nomad 4 was all right as well, but not going to be enough to qualify. And so thank you for playing. Hope you had fun, and maybe see you next year.
Yep. Next up, we've got Fell 4WC. Now, this team did actually have some solid players on it. HLV, Fell, Greninja even, but of course, still fairly low ranked, so they are going to drop off here.
Yep, thanks for playing once again, but not going to be making it on. Shout out Reshman, also usually a pretty good tournament player, but not going to be enough to qualify this time. That's a name. All right. These guys don't qualify, and with a name like that, I'm glad they don't qualify. Yeah.
Nothing more to say there.
Yeah, let's move on. Goodbye. All right. Next up, the Kelburn Pirates. Not also going to be qualifying in this case. Gambler actually making an appearance and scoring very well on the Hidden 2 there, with 661k by himself, but not able to make enough of a difference for the team to qualify overall. So they are going to be dropping out in qualifiers despite the very good score on that map.
Yeah, a couple solid scores, but just no depth there. Next up, we've got Lights Out. They had some solid scores as well. We see some placements, number 26 on the Nomad 1. Unfortunately, outside of that, could not get any scores in the top 32. And so they will be dropping out. Hearts did put up some solid scores along with IRYL. But they, again, just no depth to the roster and couldn't put up the scores.
And next up, we have some German team name. I don't know how to pronounce that anyway. Also, not going to be qualifying in seed number 33. This is the last team before we get to the qualifying rosters. Not a ton to say here. Again, a couple of pretty solid scores like the Nomad 1 or like the Hidden 1 and Hard Rock 2 for this team. Actually, I think that Hard Rock 2 score is wrong, and I saw the Hidden 2 score for one other team was wrong. So We're hoping to get the sum scores at the top displayed correctly. Double checked that the seedings for all of these teams are correct. So if you've already been
Yes.
announced, your team seeding is correct. Just a couple of those sum scores at the top are not correct on the sheet. So we'll be making sure that those are all correct in just a second. And otherwise, yeah, looks like unfortunately this team will not be qualifying, and this is the last team to not qualify for the tournament. Everyone from here on will be qualified and will be playing in the round of 32 bracket stage.
Yeah, so should be moving on to our top 32. See if we can get that changed. It's going to be, yeah, Gente Syria Ush. So they've got Cappy, who was really their big carry player, put up some solid scores on a lot of maps that really brought this team over the finish line. I'm honestly really surprised we didn't see a New Wave play more maps. I think the highest ranked player on the team, and surely would have helped them place a little bit higher, but they qualified anyways. So congratulations to Gente Syria on being the first qualifying team for Resurrection Cup.
Yeah, good luck to them. They're going to have a tough match in round of 32, but, maybe good luck in the loser's bracket round 1, because just knowing the first seeded team, you're probably not winning that matchup, but you can definitely win some of the matches in that loser's bracket. All right, going to be moving on to seed number 31. It is not Denisimov. That's how I'm gonna say that.
I think you got it.
Again, a team where you've got two players who played almost every map. Mindblock playing every single map for this team. MGM playing all but Hard Rock 1. So those two players really kind of the carry players for this team, and a couple of subs who did quite a lot as well. CPXG, Lurzi, and Kaikurik 25 playing quite a lot of maps for this team. None of the score totals particularly high for this team, but a couple of totals above 1 mil. The Nomad 1, Nomad 2, Nomad 4, Hard Rock 1, and DT2. Now that we have all of those sum formulas fixed at the top there, so the team scores are all correct.
Yeah, it's actually one of the more balanced, low-seeded teams with their kind of core three players there. Now we should be moving on to number 30, who just played their qualifier lobby a moment ago. It's going to be Content Pilled. Now, this team was absolutely hard carried by TS Fury. Otherwise, Melons had some solid scores, and so did Kermisia. But this team does not come close to qualifying without TS Fury there.
Yeah, absolutely not. TS Fury definitely hard carrying this team, playing every single map, and just popping off on quite a lot of them. I believe that's a full combo on the Nomad 2, and pretty good scores on everything else. I'm going to check on exactly where he placed in the individual performances, because this is a very good performance overall.
Yep.
Yeah, TS Fury actually number 39 overall, played all 11 maps and averaged 479,000 score across 11 maps. Top scored 9 of those maps for his team. So looked pretty good in the qualifiers, and is pretty much the only reason this team qualified. So keep leaning into TS Fury is all I can say for this team. You're gonna need him in your round of 32 matchup, that's for sure.
Oh yes. Next up, at number 29, we have got Puo. Now this was a little bit more of a balanced team. We saw some good scores from players like Anavo, Godropo, and even Maki Brony. And they're just going to squeak in with a couple key scores, looking at the Nomad 1, Nomad 3, and the Nomad 2, as well as that DT1, just barely enough to get them in here.
Yeah, not a lot to add in this case. I think a more of a well-balanced team than the previous one. So despite Unable and Maki Brony playing almost every map together, not any huge standout performances for either of those players. Same for Carlixon. Just looking at the scores for all three of those players, you can see they're all kind of around the same 300k-ish average on a lot of maps. So definitely a much more well-rounded team. and going to need as much early stage as they can get, once again, against seed number 4 out of qualifiers in the round of 32. So good luck to them in their first matchup.
Yep. Then, number 28, we have got Glory Hammer XX. Now, this team did actually have
This
two
team
players.
Goes hard.
It really does. Now, this team had 2 players screened out at the beginning of the tournament, so definitely not the roster they expected to end up with, but they're here and they qualified anyways, largely off the backs of Zenwat Bad Pog and Kruri, who really are the 2 big carries for Glory Hammer, with everybody else kind of playing the fill role.
Yeah, without Xenoides, this team does not qualify at all, and pretty much the same as filling the same role as TS Fury for this team. Not quite as high of an individual placement, average score much lower than TS Fury on all of these maps, hovering around the 350k-ish mark, but still somebody that you're gonna want to lean into if you are XX underscore Gloryhammer XX underscore 9348. Definitely lean into Xenoides and how he's feeling on the round of 32 pool. And good luck to them in round of 32.
Yep.
All right, next up, we have Poly Haters. Team of 8, but they only had 5 people play during qualifiers. Wessel, Osu, Inquisitives, and Duo X all not playing. This is this team potentially de-seeded right here, because those 3 are all actually very good players. So I think this team has potential to do way better in bracket stage than what their actual placement says about them. I don't know if it was just like they just didn't have players for qualifiers or what, but this is definitely a team to watch out for if you are seed number 6 in your first matchup. Don't underestimate them just because they're seed 27.
Certainly is, yeah. I mean, Catburger especially is a very, very strong tournament player, and so I think they'll probably have a tough time up against seed number 6 in that first round, but this is going to be a very, very terrifying team that is going to go a long way in the losers bracket.
All right, next up we have Poskvonyalovi? Poskvonyalovi.
Something like that.
Poskvonyalovi, I think. Poskvonyalovi. There we go. All right, got it.
This team just basically had the same 4 players play the entire qualifiers aside from one map. They've just got Ice, TPA, Mija, and of course Donnie playing absolutely everything. They looked solid. Some good no-mod scores, really good on the HR1, and then just pretty consistent overall. They were especially good on the DT, so something to look out for against this team, but we'll see how they can perform with their rest of their players in. And I do think these 4 are more or less the better players on the team, so I don't think they're going to get a huge boost from having the rest of their roster in, but could definitely boost them a little bit.
Yeah, always interesting when you see a team where 3 players play all 11 maps in qualifiers, and their 4th player plays 10 out of 11. So you only have 1 player out of the other 4 playing 1 map in qualifiers. Definitely an interesting team. We'll see how they end up.
Up at number 25, we have got a very fun team. One of my favorites. It is going to be Bayan. We have got good mix of American-Canadian players. Obviously, Flat Paper and Jellium are going to be the 2 carries. Jellium has finally decided to stop bullying all the 50k players. Didn't see a lot of play from Iba, who is one of the faster improving Canadian players and is pretty good at Hidden especially. And then also some very good scores out of Stage on this one.
Say the full name, iFlame. Say it.
Stage my mommy.
There you go. You could also call him Keith.
Can I go?
But it's funnier.
Exia, come replace me.
Yeah, no. This is the D ranker team, Canadian D ranker team, Canadian tournament player team. Plus, is Keysway Canadian? I don't actually know.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly Canadian D ranker team plus Keysway. So yeah, good luck to them. They are going to be guaranteed at least passage to losers bracket round 1, or maybe to the round of 16 if they can pull off an upset win in round of 32. Certainly a team that's pretty well rounded. You can see only DT1 and Hidden One below 1 million team score for this team. But the average team score goes up quite a lot as you roll through the rankings in this qualifiers. I think the gap between seed 1 and seed 32 is absolutely massive. So we'll see whether they actually do stand, a really good chance or not. But definitely looking to upset in the first round, and if not upset the first round, hopefully make it through that losers bracket round 1.
Yeah, Jillian especially so good at the tapping style maps. But let's move on to the next team. At number 24, we have Waganawa Mugumen. And this team...
This guy doesn't watch anime.
Not at all, not at all. You got me there. This one, Sir and Knight really were the carries for this team, but it is pretty balanced overall. Good supporting scores all around. And so I do think this team is pretty well balanced, but they really do lack that one big carry.
Yeah, Sir at, I think, about number 101 overall ranking, right near players like Vesprit and Karyu, and Knight right around number 130 by Xenoides Badpog and Shiox. So definitely those are the two players to watch out for. But not a bad overall placement for Waganawa Megumin, and hopefully they'll be able to take one match through the tournament. At seed 24, they are expected to win at least one match in this tournament. If you're going by qualifier results, top 24 is a 1-2 finish. So we'll see if they can make it to that 1-2 finish spot.
Yeah. Now this next team is quite the team. They are the 6th lowest ranked team in the tournament based on average ranked. And that's going to be Pawn. Now, when you think of the 6th lowest ranked team in the tournament, you certainly don't think of Takedo and Ryuk, but that is what we have. Obviously, Takedo and Ryuk absolutely carried the qualifiers for this team. Not only that, but they played most of the qualifiers with only 4 players. I do want to shout out Elixirio, who put up some really impressive scores as well. And I do think this team is feels a little bit underseeded, especially in the early rounds where Takedo and Ryuk especially are not going to have much problem whatsoever with the early stage maps. But I do think they are going to run into some problems later on in the tournament when they do get into those harder map pools, and they just do not have any depth outside of Elixirio, Takedo, and Ryuk.
Yeah, want to give an extra shout out to Ryuk here. I think a lot of people probably expect Takedo to be the one who had the better average score and the better performance overall. Not the case this time around. Ryuk was number 17 overall, top scored 9 maps out of 11 for this team, compared to Takedo, I believe, top scoring 1. Let me double check that real quick. Yeah, top scoring 1. Takedo with 400k average score on those 11 maps, and Ryuk with 573k average score on those 11 maps. So, proving once again that despite not really being considered a tournament player for Ryuk, when he actually shows up and wants to play tournaments, he is still one of the best out there. So, really solid stuff from him.
Yep. At number 22, we have got Wide People Happy. Now, on this team, have to shout out B-Prod, of course, put up some very impressive scores all around. Was probably the best player on Wide People Happy in qualifiers, at least. You also had Also Love Uma and Flames Tears putting up some really good supporting combos, but otherwise it's a fairly balanced team with most players contributing here and there.
Flames Tears, what happened on Nomad 2, man? What's going on there? Why you got 300k? I thought that was your thing. Come on, man. Why'd you bottom score? What happened?
That's rough.
That's rough. That's rough. All things said, though, relatively good performance from this team. I think Fie and Bazinga's Dead not playing means this team only gets stronger from here. So as a middle seeded team and seed number 22, you definitely want to watch out for this team if you are. I think their matchup is seed number 11 out of round of 32. So for
Yeah.
this middle seeded matchup, definitely a team to watch out for, given that only 6 of their players actually played any maps in qualifiers.
Yeah, they can only get stronger. Next up, number 21, we have got Karamba. Now, this team was honestly carried pretty hard by Corey Maluko, who top scored a majority of the maps for this team. There are also, I mean, especially the DTs, the Hard Rocks, getting a full combo on Hard Rock 1. Were also some solid scores from players like Felicia and the other Felicia, who is not Felicia. But anyways, this team has generally pretty consistent scores all around. Really good performance on the Hard Rock 2, getting number 7. But otherwise, just consistent scores.
Yeah, Korea Maluko averaged 530k almost on this pool, playing all of the maps. So definitely the carry player, like you said. Fake Felicia is the top one. Real Felicia is the bottom one. If you're looking
Yes.
for exactly which scores are whose. Um, and yeah, this will line up mostly Brazilian and probably a more for fun roster than anything else, with just a bunch of Brazilians looking to play the tournament and have some fun. But again, very much leaning on Corey Maluko and the 2 Felicias, one real, one fake. Chichi also doing pretty solid on the Nomads and Hard Rock 1, so shout out there. But yeah, a lot of good fill players on this team, and hopefully that flexibility can help them out in the bracket stage.
At number 20, we've got myhouse.wad. Now, when you look at the names on this team, it's, I mean, kind of the standouts that have been around the tournament scene for a while, Aleph and Antonio, and they put up some really solid scores. But it was actually Sherry Torrey, the face at the bottom there, who kind of came out of nowhere and put up a lot of really impressive scores. You see the 700k on the HD2, that was 19th overall on the map. Really pushing up my house on the HD mod category especially. And they had some really impressive Nomad team performances as well, getting top 12 on both Nomad 2 and Nomad 3.
It's where we start to see teams kind of break into the top placements on specific maps, like you said, with the Nomad 2, Nomad 3, also with the Hard Rock 1, looking very good on that map overall. So this is, again, a middle-seeded team where you can't really underestimate them just because they're middle-seeded. Obviously, like you said, Aleph and Antonio and Manolo as well, all very famous Spanish players, but you have a lot of other good tournament players on this team who are going to be relatively consistent. Just looking at the fill players on this team, you don't see anybody dropping like 100k on random maps on this team. So this is clearly a team that can play pretty much everything to some extent. I mean, their lowest placement in qualifiers is number 22 on any map, which is barely below their overall placement. So this is a very well-rounded team, and a team that is going to be very scary early stage to go up against, because pretty much every player on this team is pretty solid. We obviously don't have information on Jesus, but hopefully Jesus will show up and bless this team with some good scores in round of 32.
Let's hope so. At number 19, we've got PSG. Now, at this point in the seeding, really just about every team from here on out has at least a couple very scary players. And here, it's not one, but 2 Kurochis. Second Kurochi is actually just Son Goku, but both Kurochi and Son Goku are very, very strong players that put up some solid scores. Kurochi especially had a really, really impressive standout performance for Team Italy in 3WC recently. She is a very, very good aim and alt player, so I do expect this team overall to be very good at some of these more aim-focused, alt-focused maps. You see the Nomad 1, number 9th overall. And also, they do have some good fill players as well in Pepsi Max, who got a lot of good scores and played most of the maps, as well as Honori, who had pretty consistent near 500k scores.
Yeah, despite the really good players on this team, there are a couple of weaknesses for the team overall. You can see the Nomad 4 score in particular is ranked number 24 overall. DT3, they're number 27 overall. And there's a couple of players who really struggled with some particular maps, despite Pepsi Max being in for a lot of maps. Also dropped a few 100Ks here and there on certain maps. Same goes for a couple of the other fill players on this team. So this is a team with some definite weaknesses in the roster, not quite as well rounded as the previous team, but still ends up qualifying higher because of the pop offs and the really solid placements that they do have, like the number 9 placement on Nomad 1 or the number 12 placement on DT2 as well. So looking forward to seeing how well they can do in the bracket stage, abusing those strengths and trying to get through into the rest of the tournament. Hopefully pulling off an upset win. Always exciting.
Certainly, I do think that's a team with a fairly high skill cap as well. So if they can survive to the later rounds, they might be able to do something there. But let's move on to number 18. We have got Gaming. And honestly, this is a team I expected to place a little bit higher. Top 10 to 16. You look at the roster, you've got players like Flasho, You're Cute, Hanbei, even Nick1324, who didn't play very many maps, which was surprising because, just on paper, Nick is definitely one of the better players on this roster. This is not a team to be underestimated. They have a lot of very capable players. There is actually a lot of depth to this roster. They're maybe missing out a little bit on that, having that one big carry player to get them really deep into the tournament. But I can certainly see them upsetting a couple higher seeded teams.
Yeah, this is where like the placements for the teams in round of 32 get really, really close together. I think this team is playing like seed 15, so this is a super middle seed matchup. About Nick, he has some problems with his tapping hand, an injury in his tapping hand, I believe, and actually also unregistered from Canadian Draft Cup just recently. So I don't know that this team is really going to see Nick come out and play all that many maps. So for all intents and purposes, take this qualifiers placement as pretty legitimate, despite Nick being on this team, as opposed to some of the other teams we've seen where members have not played and we've said, oh well, they probably come in later on. I don't know that Nick actually comes in later on for this team. So you're going to be looking at other players to pick up some of the slack and hopefully propel this team a little bit forward. That said, they certainly have a roster who can do that. Pincus and You're Cute, very, very good high skill cap tournament players. I think those are the two players that you're going to end up leaning a lot on. Cuckweezy as well, playing lots and lots of different types of maps all over the place and filling more for the non-mechanics side of things as opposed to the sort of raw mechanics for this team. And you can see a lot of these maps that they're good at are either relatively aim focused or relatively reading focused on the hidden. Good overall hidden placement, good Hard Rock 2 placement as well, very, very aim focused there, and good Nomad 1 placement, obviously the aim map, whereas a lot of their other skill sets kind of fall to the wayside on this team. So you're definitely looking to abuse aim and abuse aim mechanics on this team, and if you're not this team, looking to abuse tech and alt and a couple other things against this team. So good luck to them in the bracket stage. It's going to be a close matchup, given they're against only seed 15.
Yeah, definitely is going to be a good one to start off the tournament. Then, in number 17, we have got Fishball Cat. Now, I don't know what this, there's a new trend, I guess, of having, two of the same player on every team. But we've got Defons and Defons 2, who is my Angel Flare. But really, Defons was the main carry for this team. Played most maps, obviously, aside from some of those DTs, where Defons is less comfortable, but had some really impressive scores on the Hiddens and the Nomads, especially. Otherwise, this team feels like it's really well balanced. Their roster is very map dependent. You've got Victor Skull and Harada for the DT picks. You've got Swake and Exotl for the HR. You've got Cha in for the HDs. And overall, it feels like they have the players to cover just about every kind of mod category and skill set, even though they certainly have some that are stronger than others, notably the Nomad and the Hidden there.
Yeah, definitely the Nomad and Hidden pools are where this team shines, and it's kind of surprising because you do look at Defons actually outscoring his team on both of the Hard Rock maps, number 19 individually on Hard Rock 1, number 18 individually on Hard Rock 2. So really popping off for Defons on those maps, but the rest of the team not able to perform quite as well in comparison to the rest of the field on those maps. So despite Defons being a relatively good Hard Rock player, I think that strength is not taken advantage of as well. That said, obviously, like you talked about, the hidden pool and the nomad pool definitely do get taken advantage of, where he's placing like number 16 on hidden 1 and number 10 individually on nomad 3, right? Like those are very, very good individual placements. So some of his strengths are going to be able to be taken advantage of by this team. And on other maps like the hidden 2, his weakness is somewhat made up for by the rest of his team, doing relatively well on the map and contributing to a good team score. So looking forward to seeing this team, Defons or otherwise, pop off on certain maps that they look to be pretty good on. The DT1 as well, looking pretty good for this team. The DT3 looking pretty solid for them outside of just Defons being Defons on certain maps. There's obviously, like you said, certain maps where you don't really want to be picking these maps as this team, like in the Hard Rock pool. Or the Double Time 2, but a lot of the rest of these maps are really, really solid for them. And they are one of our 2 smack dab in the middle teams here, seed number 17. We're now moving on to the other middle seeded team in this tournament. It's going to be seed number 16.
Yep, that's going to be La Mugle. Now, this is another team that to me feels very well balanced. Now, I would say that Yip is probably their strongest player, along with either Sifs or Tony, both of which had some very good scores. But this is just, they don't really have, one big carry player. They do have their kind of core 3 that play a lot of the maps, but overall, they have lots of players that can fill in when needed. Siden, Fame Time, even TFG all have filled in for quite a few maps. Now, this team is very, very good at the low AR HD2. But otherwise, they're fairly consistent across the mod categories. Some a little higher, some a little lower, but pretty steady overall.
Yeah, I think this team is an interesting matchup for seed number 16. Both of these teams are pretty good on Nomad. Both of them are relatively good on Hidden. This team obviously has an advantage on the Hidden too. But this team has an advantage on the Hard Rock, and I think the DT pool is pretty well matched for both of these teams as well. Neither of them were particularly strong on the DT2, but both were relatively good on the DT3 and the DT1. So I think this is going to be a very good matchup in a round of 32, provided that Shihodere and Shiviel My Mommy don't add a ton to this team's overall performance, because this team qualified seed 16 with only 6 out of 8 members playing in qualifiers. So if you just look at the stats, it's probably going to be pretty close. But I think that depends a lot on who actually shows up for this team in the round of 32 matchup and how well the previous team in seed number 17 can show up themselves. So definitely looking forward to that first round of 32 match between our 2 middle seeded teams. But yeah, very, very solid qualification from these 6 players on this team, and looking forward to seeing what the other 2 can do.
Yeah, I think Shiho should be a pretty solid addition to the team if they show up. But Shivel, my mommy, is a five digit ranked 20k, so probably not going to be getting a lot of help there. Might see them in for 1 or 2 maps here and there, but largely just going to be a 7-player team for the most part. With that, move on to team number 15. It is going to be Ghoul Mode. Now, this is another pretty well-balanced team. They have solid depth as well. They do have Tebi and Chihuahua, who are the 2 main carries for the team, but really just about anyone can fill in on any given map. Of course, they were missing Revo, who should be a solid player outside of qualifiers, so team is not to be underestimated. But they do have certain weaknesses. The Nomad 1 and the DT3 especially, but otherwise pretty consistent across the board. They didn't really have any standout scores. They're just good at each mod category.
And it is actually looking like we do have a couple of incorrect placements for this team. Their Nomad 3 is actually number 12 on the map. Their Nomad 4 is number 13. Hidden 1, they are number 16, and Hidden 2, they are number 12. Hard Rock 1, they are number 14. Hard Rock 2, they are number 15. DT1, they're number 11. DT2, they are number 19. And DT3, they are number 10. So it looks like the placements got duplicated a bit there. You can see double number 15 on Nomad 2 and Nomad 3, and everything else I think is just shifted over by one map. So hopefully those formulas can get fixed for the remainder of this broadcast. Just comparing the middle seeds directly that we just talked about, I do think what we already said largely holds true. Their strengths and weaknesses are still about the same, despite the placements on the maps being off, as Fishball Cat outmatched on the Hidden 2, but matching up pretty well on pretty much everything else outside of that Hard Rock 1 and the DT2, but way outmatching the Mugre on the Double Time 3. And now it looks like we do have correct placements on all of the maps, so we can correctly look at all of the things here. So, yeah, there we go. Got them fixed.
Yeah, but this team does feel like they have a couple of players that can pop off on certain maps. You see the number 16 overall in the DT3 from Sedru, the number 10 overall from, I think it was Chihuahua on the Nomad 4. So they can definitely put up some really impressive scores, and overall just seem to be a pretty consistent team, so I expect they'll do fairly well. With that, we can move on to seed number 14, and that is going to be Ballers Will Ball. Now, this is an overall pretty strong team, but the roster is going to be pretty dependent on the map. I think they don't really have one big carry player that stands out. Lightout looked really good on the DTs and the Hard Rocks, especially. Number 14 overall on the Hard Rock 1. Solid performances on all of the DTs. Interesting that Matthew did only play 2 maps, is a very high skill cap tournament player, obviously known especially for those low AR rating HD2s, which he did come in for, but I'm surprised we didn't see him on more of the Nomad, so I do expect we'll see Matthew a little bit more as the tournament goes on. Otherwise, they just have a lot of players that can fill in for maps, Toybot and Ophiz, even S-Dot, really just everyone putting up impressive scores here and there. It feels like they can put a solid 4 players together on just about any map.
Yeah, this seems like a relatively well-balanced team. I think they have some obvious strengths and weaknesses, very good on the tech and reading picks, and relatively strong on just Hard Rock in general, as well as the DT pool, generally speaking. That said, their matchup versus Team PSG in round of 32. Team PSG does have some maps where they score better or about the same. Namely, the Nomad 1 for PSG was really good. They were number 9 on that map overall. But Ballers Will Ball way outscoring on the Hidden Pool, way outscoring on the tech maps, as well as on that Hard Rock 2. And way outscoring on the Double Time 2. A lot of other maps were really, really close between these two teams, though. I think looking forward to a really good middle seed matchup between these two teams. Pretty close match overall is what it looks like from the qualifiers. So looking forward to seeing what they can do. Looking forward to seeing them in the bracket stage and seeing how well they perform overall.
Yeah, I think that matchup is especially scary in the first round, considering they have Kurochi, who is so good at the Nomad ones and the Hidden ones and just those aim picks in general. So we're really going to see both of those teams have to go at each other's weaknesses. And I think that one could be pretty pool dependent. It just depends which team has more maps that play into their strengths. But with that, we can move on to our next team, number 13, Capybara. Now, this team has quite a few pretty highly ranked players, but many of them have not had a super long tournament experience. Yari looked very good, as well as Aliar. And I think Slipper especially, Slipper, I don't really know how that's pronounced, but it's going to...
Slipper, yeah.
All right, Sliper is going to be a very valuable player because even though had pretty consistent scores for the most part, and didn't have a ton of standout scores, but was overall just very consistent and able to fill in on a lot of the maps that other people couldn't. So overall, it is a fairly well-rounded team. They did really, really good on the tech and the Nomad 2, as well as decent scores on the DTs. So this could be a scary team on some of the more tapping focused Nomad picks.
Yeah, shoutouts on this team to Yeri, who played 10 maps out of 11 and top scored 4 of them. Was number 42 overall on individual rankings and got an average score of 460k across all 10 maps for that team. As well as Alir, who played, I think, also 10 maps. I'm going to just double check that real quick. Yeah, played 10 maps, top scored 4 as well, got about 430k average, and was number 66 overall. So those two players really are the carry players for this team and are the players who you should be looking out for if you are facing off against this team in round of 32. That said, this matchup in round of 32 for my house.lad is probably going to end up being pretty difficult once you start getting to seed 13, seed 20. In round of 32, you start to see a lot of that seeding difference come out. And so from here on is kind of where in my head I start to separate, okay, middle seed matchups versus like high seed versus low seed matchups, because the difference in seeding starts to get just a bit too much for pool RNG or early stage to overcome. And you can see that looking and comparing the placements between these two teams. Multiple top 10 placements for Capybara, including a top 5 on Nomad 4, and nothing below top 20. Their worst score was on Hard Rock 1 at rank number 20, whereas for my house.lad, you have multiple maps under rank number 20 and nothing at rank 10 or above. So despite being a relatively consistent team for my house.lad, going to be a very tough matchup versus Capybara.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. And I think that's going to be especially apparent with our next team, because at number 12, we have Swaglands. Now, this is an almost full Canadian team outside of Dennett, who only played 2 maps in those DTs. This is a very exciting team. It is really a lot of the top Canadian tournament players, outside of course players like Ryuk, Nick, and Zudinator. But there are a lot of good players here. You look at Spicy, who has had a lot of excitement in the Canadian community as a really good DT up and comer, who did perform really well on the DTs. So that's nice to see. But overall, it does feel like a really good roster with a lot of players that can put up solid scores. You look at non-cycle, who can just pop off on certain maps. You look at things like the DT3, things like the Nomad 3. And otherwise, it's just a pretty balanced and well-rounded roster. They do have a lot of depth to their roster, so it feels like to me, even if they don't have a particular map that they are especially good on, they are a very, very consistent team, and they can put a roster together for pretty much any map, and they're not going to have a bad time on it.
Yeah, I think depth to the roster is a big thing with this team. The two top performers for this roster were Non-Cycle and Spicy in that order. Non-Cycle number 44 overall, Spicy number 56 overall. Non-Cycle playing 9 maps and Spicy playing 8 maps, and Non-Cycle only top scoring 2, Spicy only top scoring 1. So the main difference for this roster is that yes, you have kind of a core 2 or 3, counting Sari and Vinopoli among that core, but the fill players for this team are where you start to get really, really good scores on lots of different maps. Genderbender top scoring Nomad 1, Too Slow top scoring the Nomad 2. There is a top score for Non-Cycle on the Nomad 3, but you go back and see now Sorry on the Nomad 4, or Genderbender on the Hidden 1, or Desperate on the Hidden 2, right? The subs for this team are who are often top scoring maps and making that big difference for them, whereas the 2 top performers are largely providing solid, good scores, but nothing that is a huge pop off, and leaving those pop offs to their fill players. So, depth of roster definitely important for this team, and it's where you start to differentiate a lot of times between really good teams and just good teams. Is that yes, you have 2 players who are really solid and are in for almost everything, but they don't need to perform on every single map because you have other people on this team who are there to back them up and put up those good scores. And that is what this team's biggest asset is, and it's going to make the round of 32 matchup for their opponent very, very difficult.
Yep, that's for sure. Maybe the only concern for this team is in later stages, they might have some trouble with the skill cap. But moving on to number 11, we have got Grease Monkey. Now, for this team, definitely a little bit less balanced. You've got Melver and Bunny Like Money, who are the two big carries for this team. But they do have really good supporting players behind them still. Salvatore had Kedema, and Yunpris had some very, very good scores. Yunpris especially getting number 6 on the DT2 with, I believe, a full combo. And this is a team that is very, very good at some of these modded aim picks. You see number 3 on the Hard Rock 1, number 11 on the Hidden 2. And they might be a little bit weaker in some of the DTs. You see the DT1, DT3.
I don't think that's going to stay, though, because this team had no Jackpacks, no Penguinzy, and those two players are both really good at double time. So they basically kneecapped themselves for the whole double time pool and still qualified number 11. So I'm this team is super underseeded. Definitely a shoe-in for round of 16 at least, and a team that is probably going to give seed number 6 a run for their money in round of 16. Like this is a very good team that was missing 2 players in qualifiers and still got top 11.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Nomads especially, they're already number 8, 9, and 5 in Nomads 2 to 4, and that's only going to get better with Penguinzy and Jackpacks. So this is going to be a scary team that can definitely outplace their seed.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what these players do. Give me just a moment. I want to check on a couple of individual placements for the players on this team, specifically Melver, Bunny Like Money, and Kadama, who had really good, consistent performances. I think Bunny Like Money and Melver are really kind of the core two for this roster during qualifiers. Yeah. And you'll probably see Jackpacks and Penguinzy start to come in a little bit more. Penguinzy specifically for the DT and stamina picks, maybe not for Nomad 2 in round of 32, but definitely for the double times. And Jackpacks, I think, for some of the other skill sets where maybe they were missing a player or two and really wanted that extra substitution. So let me take a look at Melver and Bunny Like Money real quick.
While you're doing that, I do think this team is pretty underseeded on the Nomad 2. You notice Kadama with the 250k score. I have no doubt that one of either Penguinzy or Jackpacks could probably blow that score out of the water. And so if you're going up against this team, watch out for the Nomad 2s. It's already number 8, and it's only going to get better. They are so good at the tapping picks, especially without 2 of their very good tapping players. And so this team just has a lot of good options now. It does have a little bit more of a weak point with the HD2s and HR2s, maybe not as comfortable on some of these more gimmick picks, but going to be a strong team.
Yeah, definitely Melver and Bunny Like Money were kind of the core two. Empress also had a relatively good performance on the specific maps that he was in for, the full combo on DT2, doing a lot of work there. But Melver was number 35 overall, as my dog is just popping off in the background right now. And Bunny Like Money was number 53 overall. 500k average score for Melver on this pool is nothing to sneeze at. It's a very good average overall, especially playing 9 maps out of this pool.
Yep. Now we are into the top 10 teams of Resurrection Cup. And of course, starting with number 10, we have Gentleman, and then someone just smashed their keyboard a little bit. But regardless, this is another one of those fairly well-balanced teams. RAF GPO especially, I thought, has looked really good in a lot of recent tournaments and has been improving fairly quickly. Is especially good at some of those more aim-focused picks like the Nomad 1 and the HD 1. Dito didn't play a ton of maps, but on the maps that Dito did play, got very solid scores, was usually the top score on that map. And it's always a good player to have because you can pick to their skill set, knowing that they are always going to be able to put up a strong score on the map. And even then, you have Rizoa putting up really good Hard Rock scores. You've got Anesthetic and Suzuha in for the DT picks. And overall, just a really solid roster. Now, Eddie did not play at all, so that's going to be a welcome addition as well. As well as Chile are putting up a really solid score on the No Mod 4. So I think this team is going to be especially scary on some of the DTs, obviously the Hard Rock 2, and just any alt focus pick, because as most people know, tends to be an extra alt focus pick with either the HD3 or the Hard Rock 3 in each pool. And I think this team is going to have a very, very good time on those picks.
Yeah, definitely agree. Also, sorry for being absent. I had to answer my door, as my mom's sick and I'm the only one awake right now. So, my dog was
good.
popping off. Yeah, this team is kind of a weird performance. You don't have any one player popping off too hard. Eddie obviously doing a lot of the hard work carrying this team through the qualifiers to seed number 10. But for example, you look at Chile Repair and Raf GPO, and both of them are like below number 50 individual scores for this team. Same for players like Rasoa, who did play multiple maps, or for Anesthetic. So despite really high average scores for a lot of the players, it doesn't seem like any one player is really a carry performer for this team. You have a solid core and solid subs who can do really well on specific maps, but nobody who's just popping off on this team and is the carry player. And that is another form of depth of roster, which is really important for these higher seeded teams.
Certainly is. With that, let's move on to number 9. We have got Boxall, and this is going to be the Karcher team. You've got Karcher and Lugiel, as well as, so not Zyson, that is actually Bora. But pretty much as you would expect, Karcher popped off and really, really pushed this team to that higher seeded number 9 placement, getting number 4 individual across the tournament. So props to Karcher. And then, of course, there were some good supporting scores like Mouse Player, and Vendemia especially, I thought, played very well as well. Now, this team did have some solid performances on specific maps like the No Mod 1 and the No Mod 4. But overall, they're going to be pretty consistent across the board. I think they could be especially scary on the No Mod 2 map because you can never count Karcher out of a No Mod 2 pick. But even then, just good supporting players that can put up good enough scores to bring this team decently far, plus the added skill cap of Karcher, who is going to be one of those higher skill cap players in the tournament that can really push the team over the edge on any of the harder picks in the pool, is going to be really big.
One other thing I want to highlight on this team is there's a grand total of 3 maps where they're not top 10 on the map. Nomad 3, Hidden 1, and Double Time 1. Every other pick in this pool, they were top 10 on the map. And you have multiple picks where they are top 5, including the Hard Rock 2 and the Nomad 1. So, yeah, this is a team that not only placed really high on lots of different maps, but also didn't really place all that low on anything in particular. I mean, their worst placement is number 16 on Nomad 3, number 14 on DT1, and number 12 on Hidden 1. Like, those are still very good overall placements on these maps. You're not going to be counting them out of those maps in an early matchup at all. I think it's more once you get to that round of 16 where they start to face off against more difficult opponents that maybe those weaknesses become more apparent and you can start to pick on them a little bit. But this is a team that, while Karcher did a lot of the hard work in carrying and full comboing multiple maps, also had some very good performances, like you said, from Vendemia and from Lujol. Lujol was their next best performer, averaged 500k across 6 maps, and Vendemia averaging 400k across 9 maps. So just very good overall performances from both of those players, and a lot of really solid subs who can play a couple of different maps where they need the extra bit of score.
Yep, and I have to confirm that is indeed number 1 HR2 score at 785k. It was just an incredibly, incredibly hard map that a lot of people had a very tough time on. Now with that, we have got seed number 8, and that is going to be Full of Soup. This is a team with a lot of very strong players. Lucia, of course, was the main carry, getting the number 1 score on DT2 and just consistently putting up very, very strong scores across the board. But even outside of Lugia, of course, you've got Rhythm, Araxi, Revo, Arco, who can all step up on certain maps and pull out some really big scores. This team got the #1 score on Nomad 2, which was very impressive. Did struggle a little bit more on the Hiddens and the Hard Rock, but cannot be underestimated on any of the Nomads or any of the DT picks. The DTs especially, they have such a strong lineup with Arco, Rhythm, and Lugia. And then pretty much whoever feels comfortable as the fourth player. So this team is really going to be looking to abuse the DT picks throughout the tournament.
Yep. Just a couple shout outs here. Araxi, number 32 overall for this team. Looked really solid there. You have a Rhythm Game, number 38 overall in the overall rankings here. Lugia. Hold on. Why can't I find Lugia? Because that's not an L, that's an I. That's why.
You're
Lugia
doing
number
great.
9 overall performance was top 10 overall among all players in the tournament during qualifiers. Arco also doing very well at number Google Sheets, please work. Number 61, and Jamara doing pretty well at number 90. So there's a lot of players on this team who are just really good. And Lugia being number 9 overall is a really big boon for them. They have that carry player for the later stages, and they have the early stage consistency coming from a lot of their other core members. So really solid team, and like we said earlier, likely to make it through that early stage and get into the round of 16, at least maybe into quarterfinals if they are able to beat seed number 9. Of course, Baskal, the previous team that we just looked at, I think both of these teams are really, really solid, and that's going to be a close match in round of 16.
Certainly is. With that, we can move on to seed number 7, and that's going to be Halcyon. This is a very, very scary team with a lot of strong players. Skyla especially really popped off in the qualifiers with some pretty impressive scores. You see the number 10, number 14 on the hidden picks. But outside of that, you've got, of course, Bashi for the gimmick, known for the HD2 and Hard Rock 2 abilities. You've got Swick, who is just so good at all of the DT picks and the speed picks, which there will be more of, especially into the later stages. And even outside of those few players, there's enough talent that they can put up a very, very strong lineup for just about every map. There's not really any single map I would say they're particularly weak on. Didn't have a great performance on the DT2, but we're missing Taro, who probably could have played that, and honestly probably had a couple players who could have performed better on it. So I do think this is a fairly scary DT team as well, despite the DT2 score. So definitely don't underestimate their speed ability.
Yeah, one other thing with that DT2 score, they didn't have Taro for their entire lobby. He played 0 maps. So you're looking at probably replacing someone for that DT2 with Taro. As far as I know, he's a pretty good speed player. So yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing this team pop off. And despite seeing names like Almighty Door and Boshiman and Kablaze on this roster, they are not the carry players, which is something that I don't think a lot of people would expect looking at this roster from 1 to 2 years ago, but definitely more so the case now in 2023, where a lot of players have started to, except for Boshiman, Kablaze and Almighty Door not playing as many tournaments actively right now. But Rudge, number 22 overall, played 8 maps and averaged 580k. Kama playing 10 maps and averaging 540k at number 23 overall. Swick playing all 11 maps and averaging 480k overall. And definitely not least, Skilla playing 6 maps and averaging almost 700k on the 6 maps that he did play, number 18 overall among all different players. So 4 players on this team in the top 50 overall, and obviously very good fill players for the rest of the team with Taro, Almighty Door, Boshiman, and Kablaze. This is really where you start to get teams that are all just kind of ridiculous and very, very good players. And I think above top 8 is where we're going to start to see a very clear cutoff between the teams that are good and the teams that are really, really good and looking to go far in the tournament. And this is definitely one of those teams.
Yeah, I also want to call out, between Skillica Blaze, Bashi, and Almighty Door. This team has an absolutely terrifying low AR and gimmick roster, and I think they're going to be able to abuse those gimmick picks against a lot of teams, especially early on in the tournament. Next up, we move in to number 6, top 6 teams in the tournament, and we have got no title. Now, this team is the South Korean team here. All of the MXs. So just for reference, of course, there is the original MX. Then we've got Zyson 2, Parisha at 3, and Zhang Wuyang number 7. Now this, of course, I mean, all the teams from here on out are just insanely good, but this is a team that has played together in quite a few tournaments now. Most of these players coming in 4th place back in Corsace Open 2022. So this team we have already seen place very, very highly in previous tournaments. Now, notably, this time around, they don't have Karcher, who is usually with them. So a little bit less high skill cap there, but they have plenty of strong players to make up for it. Parisha especially looked so strong in qualifiers, getting number 6 overall. And this team is going to be really, really dominant on the no mods. You look at those alt picks, especially, you're going to see the flow aim hidden picks that this team can absolutely dominate.
Yeah, very good subs for particular maps. Adapir playing one map in all of qualifiers, but getting 666k on it, which is very hard to do. You come in and you play one map, you're going to be really nervous for that one map because you have to perform. And otherwise, your entire addition to the team is completely questioned, right? So Adapir doing a good job just coming in for that one map and performing. As well, MX 10,000, the original MX, looking really solid on the hidden one where he did come in for the first map. And like you said, MX 10,003, Parisia, looked really, really solid all throughout, was number 6 overall. The other big strength for this team is Allegrissimo, who played all 11 maps and averaged almost 600k across all 11 maps. Only top scored 4 of them. Obviously, 5 of those top scores coming from Parisia, the other real carry player for this team. So those two really forming the core for this team. Of course, MX 10,002 also playing quite a lot of maps alongside Spectre. But the two that are really popping off for this team and performing a lot are the two who played the most maps and who can play pretty much anything in the pool. So definitely looking forward to seeing what Allegrissimo and Parisia can do in the bracket stage. And one thing, yeah, there are some things to be said for consistency and depth of roster, but having these carry players can also be a difference maker when the pools get more difficult, right? If you're in quarterfinals and the pools have scaled up quite a bit, you maybe want to have a couple of players who are just really, really good. And that's exactly what this team has. So maybe they might be able to do some work in the bracket stage and quarterfinals and beyond.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a couple teams that are going to look to just DT abuse against no title as much as possible. But with how pooling tends to be these days, I think there's going to be more than enough alt and aim focus picks that it shouldn't be too much of an issue for no title, especially if we are just, I expect to see them ban out a lot of the speed picks. And even then, they did have Zhang Wu missing, who probably would have been in for a lot of those DTs over MX, notably that DT2. So I don't think that 13th on DT2 is necessarily representative of their DT abilities as a team. Next up, we are on to number 5, and we have got Mackie Pro, and this is going to be, well, on first glance, you want to say the Chinese team, but it isn't really. You've got a couple lulls along with Crystal, but then you've got players like Wowie and Akarinya. Now, Crystal and Akarinya are both coming off of very, very strong World Cup performances. Crystal just absolutely popping off. I think it was in the semifinals of OWC for China. Akarinya has looked really, really good for Germany lately. Really carrying Team Germany through 3WC. And this team just has a lot of depth to it as well. And of course, so LOL 235 is going to be David. Now, this team is so good at Hard Rock, especially. Acarinia and Crystal is just an absurd Hard Rock roster, and then the rest of the players are good enough that whoever feels comfortable on the pick can fill up that team. Even then, you've got other players to fill. You've got Woey in for the gimmick picks, Rundy in for all the DT picks. Rundy is a very strong DT player. You see number 10 on the DT2, number 17 on the DT3. And it feels like this team just has it all covered for the most part. Maybe a little bit weaker on something like the tech picks. But even then, Ocarina and Crystal are both very capable tech players. Woey, so good at the tech picks. Little bit of a low score on this one, maybe not warmed up, but generally this team is going to be very strong all around.
Yeah, and I think the thing that speaks most to how all-around strong this team is going to be is the fact that 5 of their members were top 50 in individual standings in the qualifiers. Ocarina and Crystal were number 14 and 16, respectively. Ocarina being the MVP, playing 10 maps and averaging 620k. Crystal playing 7 and averaging 644k. But then you have Lolo235 playing 4 maps and averaging 600k on those. Lolo234 playing 8 and averaging almost 500k, and Rundy playing 5 maps and averaging 540k. So these are players who are not only coming in and playing a good portion of the pool, but doing so with really high average scores. So when they come in, like look at Lolo235's row, only 4 maps, but when he comes in, he performs really, really well on those 4 maps that he's in for. The one outlier is the Nomad 3 score for him, and everything else is top 30 or above on the map. So lots of really good players who come in for specific maps and do their job very well for this team. Shiox included in that as well. Woey included in that as well with the Hidden 2 score. Yuna included in that as well with the DT picks in particular. So this is a team that is very, very strong overall, has a lot of good fill players, has an incredibly strong core 5 who really don't need fill players a lot of the time outside of some of the double time maps where you do have, for example, Crystal not really that strong on the DTs. So this is a team that has a lot of depth in the core roster and still has 2 players who are really, really good overall and scale very well into the late stage with Ocarina and Crystal.
Yeah, it does feel like this team did a really good job about picking their fill players in a sense that to cover the weaknesses of the core 5 players, like you mentioned, Woey and Shiox, but just seems like a really smart roster to me, and they're going to be rewarded with seed number 5. Next up, we have got team number 4, and I'll be honest, I was not expecting this team to place quite this high. It is going to be Quit W. Now, this team has a lot of very strong players, of course. They have a really strong DT lineup. We've got Woodsy, Jackson, Rimuru, and Flasta. But I was actually really impressed with Flasta's performance, especially. I think was something like number 12 individual throughout the tournament. And they also have a really, really scary Hidden 2 roster. They've got Will, Gaby, Coda, and Mastaz, who are terrifying on any good Hidden 2 pick. It also feels like they have really scary aim players. Of course, Rimuru and Will Cookie, known for their aim abilities. And really, any of the other players on this roster are going to be, I mean, I shouldn't say any of them, but there's quite a few of them that would be more than happy to fill in for most of the aim picks. Now, their biggest weakness is probably the Hard Rock, but even then, I think Woodsy and Mastaz are both generally very, very strong on the Hard Rock. They might just have a little trouble finding a 4th player to fill in for that Hard Rock. I would not be surprised if we see Jackson take over most of those, who I think did play quite a bit of Hard Rock back in USC. But this team also feels like they don't necessarily have that big carry player. They just have a lot of very, very good consistent players who means they're going to have 4 good scores on every single map.
And I would call that, I would question that a little bit, because yes, none of their players are like top 10 individual statistics, but you have 3 players in top 25 for this team. Flasta is number 13 overall, averaged 620k on 7 maps. Rimuru averaged 600k on 9 maps out of qualifiers. I think a lot of people tend to forget about Qualibed Rimuru in tournaments. His performance, I think, has been variable over the years. But this is a guy who was top 3 in Nick's Winter Cup 2022, has the potential to be one of the best tournament players around if he has that good tournament. And despite a rough performance in Corsair's closed this year, I think still looked very good in the qualifiers for that tournament as well, has shown that he can scale up to those later stages and be a carry player just based on 1v1 tournament results. And then you have Mustache also, top 25 in this qualifiers pool, another Corsair's closed participant for this team, who averaged 560k on 8 maps. And so this team does have 3 players who I think can fill that carry role, given the impetus and the motivation to do so. So it's gonna be tough to take this team down a peg at all. And while I agree, like, right, they don't have Malashevsky or anything, but there are players on this team who can fill that carry role and who can pop off if you really need them to. One other thing for this team, this is the first team where every single map placement for the entire team is top 10. Every single map this team played is top 10 on the leaderboard, and that is the first team to do so in all of the qualifiers. So this is a tough nut to crack with basically no weaknesses. Like you pointed out, iFlame, the Hard Rock pool is kind of the only thing you can point at, but they're still top 10 on both of those maps. Like, it's not like those are bad scores. They're just not quite as good as all of the rest of what they're doing, especially the hidden and double time pools, which are really, really solid for this team. So looking forward to seeing what this team can do overall with 3 carry core players. Woodshi and Jackson also top 50 individual performances for this team as well. So there's a lot of really good players on this team, and the fill players who come in for specific maps are also doing their job very well. Like Will Cookie coming in for 1 map and top scoring it out of the entire tournament. Gaby doing almost the same thing. So this is a good team. This is a really good team at pretty much everything.
See, this is a very interesting team in the sense that I could see them, ending something like top 6 very easily, or I could also just as easily see them making it into that kind of top 3, those top 3 teams in the grand finals. It feels like there could be a lot of variability based on how the players are feeling on any given day. But with that, let's move on to the podium slots. In number 3, the bronze medal is going to be sleep accommodation. Here, Amamiya Kokoro especially really popped off with number 7th individual. But this team is insanely good at DT, number 1, 2, and 4 across the 3 DTs. And what's even more impressive to me is that they had 6 different players across those DT maps. So, I mean, obviously a lot of times you see a team be really good at DT. They just have 4 players that happen to be good at DT specifically. But this team feels like they could put 6 out of their 8 players in for just about any DT map, and they would still be just as good on the DT Bix. Of course, Aimbot and Rico are going to be the DT core, but even outside of that, they have so many good players to fill out the lineup with. They've got really good no-mod scores, really great HD scores, of course. Hard Rock feels like they might have a little bit of trouble finding that 4th player outside of Kokoro, Lucrez, and Scroll. It's not super clear who fills out that last HR spot. But of course, I think they do have Welter, who is at least capable of playing the Hard Rocks, who did not play in the qualifiers at all. So it's not going to be too much of a worry for them.
Yeah, this team got number 3 without one of their players playing qualifiers at all. That's cool. This team's just really strong. Like, there's not a lot else to say about it. Amamiya Kokoro, as you pointed out, number 7 overall, played 10 maps and averaged 640k. Just to draw some attention to the other players who are top 25, top 50. Nathan Ram, 1918, is number 25 overall, played 7 maps and averaged 600k. Scrowl played 7 and averaged 530k. Lucrez played 9 maps and averaged 560k, so really solid overall job there. Aimbot Cone is number 31 overall with 3 maps played, because it came in and full comboed one, almost full comboed a second one, and got 530k on the other one. Averaged 700k on 3 maps. So really, really good job from him. Doing the job that the team needs, and doing it very well. That's exactly what you want to see from a player like them. Rico as well, doing just really solid. Played 5 maps, averaged 500k. Call it a day. Really solid overall team performance from this team. Again, this team does have one weakness in qualifiers. No mod 1. Not even gonna draw attention to the Hard Rocks because they're top 10 on both of those, but no mod 1, they are number 11. That is the only map where they are not top 10 in the entire pool. But everything else they're just really good at. And if you count Welter in for this team as well, maybe it frees up some players to practice other maps and do even better. So this is a very scary roster. This is a team that is slated to go to, top 6 or beyond. So definitely looking forward to seeing how this team does overall. And generally speaking, this team's average score very close with the rest of top 6 and top 7. Top eight in general. Top 8 is all above 2.2 million average score. But this team about 100k up on average score compared to QuitW, despite being down a member in Welter. So this is a really strong team.
Yeah, and even then, I would honestly be pretty hesitant to call No Mod 1 a weakness for them. Westbury had a 99.8 one slider break on the map, and had Westbury FC'd that would have pushed them all the way up to, I believe, number 6 spot. So they're certainly strong on the No Mod 1s as well, maybe just not working out this time. Consistency not quite there on the qualifier day, but you definitely can't just go picking no mod 1 into this team and expecting it to be a free point, because they are very, very capable of putting up 3.5 million on a lot of these no mod 1s, especially in the earlier stages. They are just so consistent across the board. Now let's move in to the number 2 spot. And our number 2 team is going to be ESSA. And I'll be honest, this one was a bit of a shocker for me. And I think most people will agree. I think everyone I talked to expected this team to be that first seed. And looking at the roster, it is very clear why. Obviously, you have Malashevsky, you have Rafis, Nos, Bartek, Intercambian, Arnold, Zudi, Badu. Just the whole team is so cracked. You have, every single map, they can play it. They're, if you exclude the DT2 and DT1, their lowest placement was number 3 on any map. You need a DT roster. You have, Bartek, Rafis, Intercambian, and Arnold, which is absolutely absurd. Zudinator has magically gotten better at the DT2 speed picks. You've got an absurd reading team in Badu, Arnold, and Malashevsky. An absurd finger control team with Malashevsky and Badu. And now it is worth noting that they were missing Rafis and Intercambian, who probably would have been in for those DT picks, because, of course, Intercambian, such a strong DT speed player, likely could have boosted them up in both DT2 and DT1. But it's obviously unclear whether it would have been enough to push them to the number 1 seed. But I think it's safe to say that these top 2 teams are potentially a lot closer than I think most people expected coming into this tournament.
Yeah, I think if Rafis and Intercambing are there, you pretty obviously sub out Nahus and Bartek for the DT1, and you sub out probably Bartek, maybe Malashevsky for the DT2. Not sure if they would have subbed out Malashevsky or Zudinator for the DT2. But this team, and actually they maybe only sub in Rafis for the DT2 as well. Intercambing, very good DT aim player and has very good high BPM burst, but not necessarily a DT stamina player. So I'm not sure exactly if he would have been subbed in for the DT2 or not. My gut says no. But this team still did relatively well on the DT pool, even without those 2 players. Intercambing usually in for Hard Rock picks in tournament. They still got number 2 on both Hard Rock picks without Intercambing for this roster. And just completely wiped the floor with almost every team on everything in the no mod hidden and hard rock pools, right? The only pool where they kind of struggled a bit is the DTs. And like you said, Rapid Camping not being there is, I think, a major symptom of why they did not do as well as most people expected them to on the DTs and on the rest of the pool, right? If you sub out one person who's least comfortable on each of these maps with either Rafis or Intercamping, depending on the map, I think you have a very, very good roster for this team for pretty much everything. So it's a little deceptive because you can look at, for example, team average scores, and the average score for ESSA is 2.7 million, and there is a 400,000 average score gap between ESSA and the number 1 team, and an almost 200,000 score gap between ESSA and Sleep Accommodation in seed number 3. But when you notice that Rafis and Intercamping didn't play a map, it's like, okay, well, how important actually is that distinction, and how important actually are these results from qualifiers? And my gut says not really all that important, because by the time you get to semifinals, the pool is going to be harder, the teams are going to be different, the stakes are going to be different, the schedules are going to be completely different for these teams as well. So I think that this team is still a shoo-in for winners finals alongside our number 1 team out of qualifiers.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. This is still, I think it's fair to say, the highest skill cap team in the tournament, and that is going to be absolutely massive when you get into those finals, grand finals pools, where a lot of the maps are much harder, and you really need all of the players on your team to be really high skill capped and be able to put out, 4 players on any given map at a grand finals difficulty. Now, I think everybody knows who our number 1 team is, but my god, did they pop off in qualifiers. We have got Fresh Off the Boat, who got number 1 on 7 out of 11 maps in qualifiers. Now, that is just absurd. On top of that, they had 4 players in the top 10 individual. I think it was Worst HR Player at number 1. And it was actually Decatin at number 3. So really great to see Decatin just popping off in the qualifiers. And even Window Life had the best overall DT performance out of anyone in this tournament. And it does feel like this team has kind of a lot of players with things to prove. And I think they've certainly done that. I mean, you look at Window Life, who obviously has had a ton of hype around him, a big up-and-coming player who's really been popping off in the solo rankings especially, but hasn't had a lot of tournament experience in the open rank scene. So good to see Window Life doing well. And then even Decatin, who number 3 is such an absurd performance. And I feel like Decatin is really making a push into that kind of upper echelon of tournament players with all of the other top players. And I think this team is certainly going to put up a fight against ESSA and against the other teams, of course.
Yeah, so the previous team, by the way, our number 2 team in qualifiers, was number 2 on 6 maps and number 3 on 3 maps. Almost all of the maps that they were number 2 on, this team in Fresh Off the Boat is number 1 on. Counting among those, Nomad 1, Nomad 3, where ESSA was 3rd, and Fresh Off the Boat is number 1. Nomad 4, Hidden 1, Hard Rock 2, and DT3, where ESSA is number 3 and Fresh Off the Boat is number 1. Also of note, there were only 2 number 2 scores, 1 number 3 score, and 1 number 4 score for Fresh Off the Boat on any map. So any map in the entire pool, they are top 4 on. And most of the time, like 67% of the time or so, they are number 1 on the map. The dominance in qualifiers from this team is absolutely ridiculous. Like iFlame pointed out, Worst HR Player was number 1 in match cost. Dingleton Decatin was number 3 in match cost. Rectigon is number 5 in match cost. So 3 out of the 8 players in this team are top 5 overall in match cost throughout the entire qualifiers. And then you just have the fill players on the rest of this team. Like MCY4, for example, is also top 10 in qualifiers in match costs. And aside from those 4 players, like, there's only so many maps to be played to contribute to match costs, right? Rhythmic RS is still number 29, despite only playing 4 maps, because he averaged 630k. C is in for 3 maps and got a full combo on one of them, 700k on another. Mega MK comes in for 1 map and gets 700k. Window Life comes in for 3 maps and averages 900k or so on all of them. Like, and is number 19, by the way, in match costs
with 3 maps. Why not?
With 3 maps, yeah. I think that's the highest. Yeah, everyone above him has 5 or more maps played. Everyone above Window Life and map costs has 5 or more maps played. The only player with a map count under 5, also in the top 50? I think top 50. Yeah, the only other player in the top 50 with... Actually, I can keep going. Hold on. Let me keep scrolling.
Just, why not? Yeah.
Let me keep scrolling. Okay, the next player in match costs with a map count under 5 is at number 74, who is Gaby, who had an average 660k. Every other player above that... Oh, I'm sorry. I missed Suzuha at number 55. My bad. Everybody else in the top 55 with a map count below 5, less than 5 maps played, is from this team. Because that's just how good all of the members are. Everybody popped off. I'm looking forward to seeing how dominant this team can remain throughout the bracket stage and whether that dominance continues in grand finals or not, and specifically in winners finals and beyond, because that's really where this team is going to start to see a lot of competition. I think even their semifinals match is probably going to be pretty one-sided just because of the sheer difference in average score. Like, the average score in qualifiers for this team is 3.1 million team score, and the average score for Quit W, our seed number 4 team, is less than 2.5 million. So there is about, not quite, but almost a 700,000 average score difference between seed number 4 and seed number 1, which is huge. That is massive.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely absurd. And even then, I mean, like you said, they're fill players, if you can call them fill players, as good as they are, have barely played any maps. And, you know, when you have Rectagon, Tekken Worst HR, and MCY that can play almost everything, that's really all you need. And they can afford to have those really more specific fill players. Like, you look at Worst HR player playing everything except DT, and, you know, who comes in to replace Worst Star player for just the DTs? It's Window Life, who is so far the best DT player in the tournament. And so that's kind of the case for most of the picks here. Does feel like they were pretty thoughtful about who they wanted to have as their fill players to make sure they had all their bases covered. And I think it's fair to say they have certainly covered all their bases.
Yeah, definitely. And just for anybody who doesn't like match costs and likes Zipfian's Law or average score instead, Rectagon, Worst HR player, and Dingleton were still all top 5 via Zipfian's Law and average score. So they're just that good. The team's just really good. There's not a lot else we can say. This team is by all metrics slated to win the tournament right now. We'll see if ESSA, with the addition of Intercamping and Intercamping and Rafis, can challenge them in winners finals and beyond. But until that point, I think this team is pretty much a shoo-in for all of your pick'ems to be the winner, and you're gonna get at least 1 point off this team every pick'ems round, because I would not bet my life savings against this team in round of 32. That's for sure.
Yeah, that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, but I think that's going to be it for our qualifiers results. The qualifier results should be up on the sheet not long after the stream. We do, of course, have the round of 32 Mappool showcase where Dio and Exia will be commentating. I'm going to hop off, but man, I am looking forward to this tournament. There are a lot of good teams. There's going to be a lot of good competition, and it is going to be a very exciting tournament the whole way through. Was there anything else you wanted to add to you before we get to the pool showcase?
I'm good. Thank you, iFlame, for casting with me. Always a pleasure. And we'll go ahead and get everything switched over in maybe a minute or two. Just waiting on Hoakyu to see exactly when we get stuff swapped over. And then we'll be on to the Mappool showcase for round of 32. So thanks a bunch, and we'll see you in just a couple minutes. Okay, back.
I don't even know if we're muted or not.
I think we're in. I think we are ready to go. Hokyu, please confirm. Are we ready to
Please.
go? Are we in?
Are we ready?
Are we ready? All right, we are back after a very, very short break. I'm still here, and I'm now here with Exia for the round of 32 Mappool showcase. How's it going, Exia?
It's going pretty good. Excited to showcase our first bracket Mappool.
Yeah, this one definitely a lot easier than qualifiers, and we are going to get started with the Nomad one. So let's get right into that, because it's our also first custom of the pool.
Thank you so much for who is it that made this number one? I didn't pull up the sheet, bro.
120 mappers on screen, and it is The Last Bullet by Coco, replay by Endura. All that information right on the screen, as well as all of the map metadata. This map already uploaded, by the way, if you do want to take a look at the map for yourself. This one is it's a pretty Nomad 1, but I think more of like a real map than certain Nomad 1 customs tend to be. There's a lot of pattern slider jumps in this map, and a lot of bursts and other stuff that make it a little bit more interesting than just cross-screen jump span the entire time.
Yes, indeed, correct. There are a couple of streams that do tend to space out just a tiny bit, but then it's pretty easy for most of these players, and some kicksiders can throw off some players, since kicksiders are just the source of just all slider breaks.
Yeah, not a lot to say about this pick overall, so let's talk a little bit more about how this map pool generally stacks up to the qualifiers pool. This tournament really is just kind of following the OWC format compared to some other tournaments where, for example, you have the Nomad 5 as a speed pick. We do have an extra free mod pick that kind of takes the place of Nomad 5 in this pool. And as you can tell, there's a big shift downward in difficulty for this pool. Nomad 1 in the qualifiers was almost 7.4 stars. This map, not quite 6.8 stars. So more than a half a star rating downward shift from the qualifiers to round of 32. Should make it a lot more interesting in the middle seed matchups, and much more about overall team consistency and how well players are practiced, ready to go, and how well they can control nerves in close matches.
Yeah, indeed. And like as like the lower SR is going to be introduced into this bracket, some of the low seed players could potentially make some upsets to the top seed players, because the map pools are very easy now.
Yeah, I think this is still hard enough where, like, you know, for example, your top 8 teams are probably not getting upset, but I think, you know, like 9 through 16 versus 17 through 24, you can see a lot of close matches in there.
Yep. And as we're closing up our Nomad 1, just thank you so much, Lit 120, again for this custom map, and surely this map pool is about to be a banger as well. Just many maps to go, and many more custom maps I think we have, right?
Yeah, definitely quite a few more customs in this pool. You're revealing those a little bit later on, but as for this map, really all this is jumps. Yes, there's slider jumps in this map, and a little bit of a flow aim requirement, but all the streams are really short, and aside from the few flow aim requirements on the streams in this map, which are pretty few and far between as well, it's pretty much all jumps. So yeah, have fun aiming. Have fun aiming jumps.
Nomad 1. Hey, just don't miss. Don't miss. You'll probably get score capped anywhere. Nomad 1 down, and now straight into our Nomad 2, which is going to be a Team Grimmer.
Played by the Replayer. Not sure exactly who this is. They opted not to give a name, I suppose. This one is pretty much all flow aim focused. It's 185 BPM, and the star rating is low for a No Mod 2 because of that. Really not focused on being a stamina map at all. This is pretty much all flow aim requirement on this map.
Yeah, just the flow aim. We do have some accelerating, deaccelerating streams. Just a couple in there just to just throw off some players a bit. There is at the final Ki, we do get into more heavy streams where the stamina is a bit required to complete these streams.
Yeah, a lot of the difficulty early on, though, is going to come more from how the streams curve than, for example, like Honesty style space streams in this map. A lot of tighter curves in this map alongside the acceleration and deceleration is really what brings the difficulty on this pick. So not much stamina requirement, not much like pure flow aim and spacing requirement, much more about cursor control on some of the longer streams with how the streams curve in this map.
Indeed. And just heads up, you clearly do not want to note lock in this because it is so hard to get back your space into this map, because once you hit that first miss, that note lock is just going to ruin everything you just built up to that point, probably taking up like 100k in your score or even more.
Yeah, much worse on No Mod 2s like this than on a lot of other picks for sure. Note locking on the last map, for example, maybe you miss 1 quint. This map, maybe you miss 11 notes or something like that, right? So definitely not advised, and that's why the flow aim on this map is the main difficulty, right? Because if you mess up once, you're probably dropping quite a bit of score.
Yeah. And just close to the end, as we can see, the final Ki does diff bump, as we can clearly see, and yep, that final flow, that final stream right there can catch a bit of players off if they're not too careful.
I do think this is going to be one of the easier picks in the pool. So if you are a lower seeded team, I think this is probably going to end up being one of your stronger picks against some of the higher seeded teams, just because it's a map where, you know, one shit miss from some of the higher seeded teams can completely destroy their scores. So I think this is going to end up being a popular pick among some of the lower seeded teams. And with that, we are into the No Mod 3 for this pool, Ora and Romancia by Kyoka, mapped by Godke. I believe this is our first non-custom, if I remember right. I don't remember if No Mod 2 was a custom or not. I'm gonna take a look.
I don't think No Mod 2 wasn't a custom. I think it was a custom for another tournament.
Yeah, it was for another tournament. Okay. So, second non-custom, first ranked map in the pool is this alt pick.
This alt pick does bring a lot of flow, just mainly flow. There are some patterns that will throw off a lot of players, as in the Ki's as well. Like close to the end of the Ki's, they're just gonna have some incredibly unorthodox patterns there.
Yeah, a lot of this map is really flow aim focused as well. There are some unorthodox patterns, but none of them are really snappy in this map like you see in a lot of No Mod 3 picks nowadays. A lot of this is kind of older style, like 2019, 2018 style alt, which for me is a nice throwback. But for some players might be not exactly what they expected in this pick, and you can see a lot of that as we get into the first Ki time here, I believe is where it starts. Pretty much all of this is flow, and while there are some kind of tricky patterns as we get later and later into the map, like these, for example, those circle streams are very, very difficult, but pretty much all flowing. So even No Mod 2 players who might not usually be in for modern No Mod 3s are going to have a good time on this map.
It's just the flow. Incredible to have a No Mod 3 like this. This looks incredibly fun to play as well.
Yeah, I definitely prefer this style. I think that's an unpopular opinion nowadays, but I definitely prefer this style of No Mod 3 over a lot of the other ones that you see. Frankly, I think a lot of the other ones are just not as fun. Really unintuitive gameplay, but I like
just too snappy, man.
Yeah, with that and like, I don't know, Avalon mapping. Anyway. Yeah, more of the same in this Ki. I think the ending pattern in this Ki is really, really difficult. So I think a lot of matches are going to come down to the ending pattern in this second Ki time. A little more than halfway through the map, you get this linear triangle-shaped, highly spaced pattern with
I think it's about to
sharp
come up.
corners. Yeah, it's really rough.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, that. Don't break on that. That's I think what a lot of matches are going to come down to is which team has more players that hold on during that pattern.
As soon as you hit that pattern, I think nerves are going to just set in so hard. Back to some more typical flow aim right here. And stream players can rejoice just a tiny bit right there. Oh.
Yeah, definitely the hardest patterns in this map are in all of the Ki times. That said, there are like 3 or 4 of them, that one being another one outside of Ki time. You have the first Ki time, the second Ki time, that one, and then I think there's another one of those really difficult patterns here near the end of the map. So quite a lot of places for players to break on, and despite the Ki's being really, really spiky, the fact that there's like 4 of those patterns that are really tricky, I think helps make up for it, because this is a long map.
Yeah. Incredibly long. What are we sitting? How long? I think we're just...
It's actually not on the... That's actually not on screen. It's something like 3.5 minutes, though.
Yeah, 3.5. Yeah, you are right. 3.5 minutes. Unfortunate choke from Defy right here.
Yeah, thanks to Defy for that replay. And now on to the Nomad 4. Probably a map that a lot of people know. It's Hemizorv by Ferroquidis, mapped by Realazy. This was an OWC 2020 tech pick.
Specifically, it was like semifinals, I think, maybe quarterfinals, around there.
Semifinals, yeah.
All right. And now for this Nomad pick, we got some slider aim, but overall, the slider aim isn't that too difficult. There are no ticks in the sliders, unless we see right here, and I think we can see a lot of flow in this map as well.
Yeah, a bit more like aim control in this map as opposed to the last one. A lot more like kind of snappy flow aim in this pick. And like you said, a lot of slider aim, a lot of really fast, really long sliders. No ticks though, so if you really want to cheese all of the slider aim in this map, you can. You just tap the head and then move to the next object afterwards.
Don't even complete the slider end.
You'll keep combo. You won't get much score for it, but you'll keep combo,
Yep.
which is ultimately the most important thing. Just a couple of reading sections during the slow parts as well, like right there. Tracking the rhythm becomes a little bit more important during these parts of the map, because the timing on those slider jumps is not the same. And if you want to keep good act especially, you're going to have to remember that timing or read it really well.
Yeah, just this mid section, just a break, a little bit of free combo until we get into another Ki right here.
Unfortunate slider break there for Defy near the end of the map. Wait, is that near the end? He did break that earlier once. This map is 3 minutes long also, so it keeps going, apparently. I thought it was over. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, me too. We got a long Nomad 4, ladies and gentlemen, so if you're willing to have that amount of stamina aim, because I think my hand's gonna like wear out immediately during these.
Overall, kind of long Nomad pool, 3.5 minutes. Nomad 1, Nomad 3, 3-minute Nomad 4, and like 2 minutes and 45 seconds on the Nomad 2. So overall, relatively long Nomad pool. That's not a trend for the rest of the pool. So if you really hate practicing long pools, then you're in luck. Only the Nomad pool is kind of long. But yeah, more of the same here in the last Ki time. More kick slider jumps and some slider aim here among what is otherwise relatively aim control focused linear flow in.
Oh yeah, we're still going. 3.5 minutes. Forgot about that. coming up into the end. More kick sliders. Just it's just a plagiarism. No, that's not even the right word. It's just a plethora of freaking slider aim. Just kick sliders everywhere. Just prepare to like aim heavily in this. All right, Noma 4 finish, and now we're getting into our hidden section right here. Hidden 1, and this is another custom map.
Yeah, custom map by Artisan for this map pool. Another replay by Duffy, actually, on this one. Really
Thank you,
solid. Thank you, Duffy. Yeah, lots of replays. This one much lower star rating than the Nomad one. This is only about 6.5 stars, but AR 9.3, about 190 BPM a map for this one, and really, really awkward pretty much all throughout. You can see linear slider jumps during this section, as well as lots of wide angle awkward aim or anti-aim as well. Really fast switches between high and low spacing, kind of all over the place, especially during the slider jumps in this map. And lots of pattern aim all throughout as well, kind of hitting a lot of the things that you typically think of when you think Hidden 1 without sticking to any one of those styles. The one recurring theme in this map is all of the slider jumps kind of everywhere.
I think there's going to be some like excessive sliders where this is gonna zip across the entire screen. But yeah, pretty simple Hidden 1.
And well, we kind of talked about this map already.
Yeah.
There's not a lot else to say. This is
Yeah.
this is definitely a really consistent map. There's not like huge dip spikes anywhere in this. I think even the ending doesn't really spike all that much compared to the rest of the map. So you get what you see with this one, and it's about 2 minutes and 15 seconds, so very short as well.
I think it's like the shortest in the pool. I'm pretty sure. Nah, it's second shortest.
There's a couple maps
Yeah.
that are shorter in some of the other mod pools.
Yep.
That said, for this map being really, really aim focused, the Hidden 2 in this pool is not an aim map. Definitely not an aim map. So reading players rejoice. However, that map's probably banned in like 90% of matches just because of the way that it works. We'll get to that in just a second here as we finish off with the full combo from Duffy on this Hidden 1. Thanks again to Artisan for the map. And now on to the Hidden 2, Eternal Destiny by Sakakibara Yue. Mapped by Reiji Maigo for this tournament, another custom map in the Hidden pool. This Reiji Maigo style is usually like slightly older, more mechanics focused. Think stuff like Borderland, where a lot of it is just awkward aim and bursts and light finger control. This map plays a lot more into making the objects themselves relatively difficult to read, and that doesn't come up immediately at the start, but you can already see some of these pauses in the timing on notes that are otherwise spaced exactly the same. Lots of stops and starts, lots of triples within what otherwise look like streams, lots of high spacing triples in between, and you can see again stops and starts with triples on top of single taps and other things like that, doubles in this section as well. Or I think these are just single taps and triples. It's hard to tell as a non-reading player. So this map is not easy if you are hoping for a sight-readable Hidden 2 pick in this round. Sorry to disappoint. This is probably not sight-readable for the majority of players who are going to be in for this Hidden 2. That said, for the top teams, I think you're still probably okay with this map, but a lot of the lower-seeded teams, I think, are probably going to end up banning this one against a lot of high-seeded opponents.
I predict an 80% ban rate on this map.
Yeah, this map's also really long. minutes. 3 minutes and 20 seconds of, I think that's just drain time. Not sure exactly. I'm going to check on that. Yeah, 3 minutes and 20 seconds of drain time, almost 4 minutes long overall. So really, really long pick, and that just makes it all the more difficult. It's not like you can memorize a specific section. You have to remember how these different sections are mapped. They are consistent, which does make it easier. Like, for example, these triples and single taps in this section, as well as the stops and starts on the overlapping notes, are consistent in how they're mapped. They're all on the same types of songs, and they're all in the same section. So it's not impossible, but definitely more difficult on reading in particular than your average round of 32 hidden 2 pick, which is usually just like an AR8 awkward aim map.
And there's not really anything else to talk about. We just covered everything on this map, and just waiting for it just to end. And we get straight into our hard rocks.
All right, never mind. I'm proven wrong. This is actually an aim map. They missed on a square jump. Bit unlucky there, but yeah. Otherwise, aside from some of the square jumps in this map and the space triples during the Ki times, it really is not mechanically difficult at all. So good luck to the teams in for this map. I think this is one of the harder picks in the pool, and he's probably going to be lowest average score overall, just due to the length and how difficult it is to sight read something like this. You're going to have a lot of players who just are not used to it in round of 32.
Indeed. All right. Hidden 2's out of the way, and that's both hiddens done, and straight into our hard rocks. Bandmade Unleash. We got a 3 minute, I think around 3 minutes for this hard rock one here. And yeah, just straight up just consistent sliders, aim, burst, literally anything you would want in a consistent hard rock one pick.
This map really focuses a lot on pattern aim, as opposed to a lot of other hard rock ones, which are just kind of, you know, consistent farm, comfortable aim like Nomad 1, but with hard rock. This one, a lot more pattern aim. The Ki times in particular will really demonstrate that, as a lot of the verses in this song are just mapped with pretty comfortable stuff. But you can already see square jumps, linear jumps making their way into this song as the map progresses. And as you get into the Ki times here, you'll see more square jumps, more of the pattern aim, a little bit more awkward aim. This map isn't super awkward overall. I think a lot of the pattern aim in this map is really comfortable, but definitely does still lean more into pattern aim and some really wonky streams like that one with the acceleration and deceleration alongside the space 1/3 like that.
Yes, indeed. And we just gotta be players have to be just careful of just like the unorthodox aiming on this, because there could be some circles that can be in the wrong spots if you were not careful. Like, it just, some of these 1-2s like just connected to each other, and the 1-2s right there, just incredible hard rock one to just start off our bracket Mappool here.
Star rating on this is notably lower than on Nomad 1. Nomad 1 is 6.9 stars almost, with a new star rating. A little bit lower on old star rating as well. But this one only about 6.6 stars on new star rating after Hard Rock. So I think a lot more of the focus here is going to be on some of the jumps being a little bit awkward, some of the streams being relatively spaced out. You see, again, more squares, more back and forth jumps, more somewhat awkward patterning in this map compared to the Nomad 1. That's why it's a little bit lower star rating. I think especially just because it's hard rock, there's a lot higher of a chance of shit misses from players in early stage, and so you'll probably still see about the same average score on those two picks.
I think we're just in our last third of the map here.
That slider break.
That's the higher break.
That's so sad. Unlucky for Endura. That's going to about do it for this map. Slightly awkward pattern aim focused Hard Rock 1 with a lot of comfortable aim in between and a couple interesting streams and 1/3 in the map. And that brings us to a more unconventional Hard Rock 2 pick than what we saw in the qualifiers. Qualifiers Hard Rock 2 very aim and stream focused. This one still a little bit of that aim and stream focused, but much more gimmicky in how it executes on both of those things.
We do have a lot. I think some of the bursts can be flowy in this map as well as the jumps, and it's just a lot of connecting jumps, patterns as well. I think we got some pattern aim here as well.
Yeah, lots of really awkward aim in this map as opposed to like high star rating mechanics focused aim. This one lower star rating than Nomad 1 by quite a bit, 6.5 stars on new star rating, and lots of really, really tricky flow aim on the burst. Like you said, a lot of like wiggly or variable spacing bursts throughout this map. You can start to see them here where they really get a lot more difficult. So this map focusing a lot more on aim control for CS 6.5 Hard Rock than on aim mechanics like in the qualifiers. I think a lot of people gonna be happy about this change, especially with the Hard Rock 1 being another mechanics focused pick.
It's already half of the map done, so this is pretty short, sitting at like around 2 minutes, or maybe under that, 1minute and 50 seconds. Yeah, so you won't have to like have a lot of aim control stamina for this, but still be focused, as like it does diff bump incredibly hard at the end.
Yeah, the ending of this map is really hard compared to a lot of the beginning stuff, that's for sure. I think like most of the bursts in the ending are pretty much all spaced like what you saw earlier.
We're about to come up on that diff bump section soon.
Yeah, this part, as soon as you get past that, is where everything starts to get spaced out. You see a lot of people probably missing right at the end there, so keep a lookout for that if you are playing this pick, because the ending, the very, very end of the map, like 95% of the way in, is a pretty big diff spike. Shouldn't matter in most cases, but in close matchups between really good Hard Rock teams, that might matter.
All right. Hard Rocks are done, and now into our favorite mod of all time, Double Time.
Exclamation point vote skip. This one's like, I don't know how many times I've seen this pick in tournaments before. Pretty standard Calibre DT1, ever so slightly awkward, but mostly just aim consistency with some bursts here and there. AR 10.3. There's not a lot special going on here. It is a little bit low BPM. It's 234 BPM, so for players who prefer higher BPM DT1s, like 260, 270 BPM DT1s, this is going to be a little bit low BPM. But aside from that, this is about as simple stock standard DT1 as it gets. Calibre, very good mapper for most people. I don't personally like Calibre maps, but recognize that's an unpopular opinion, and most people are going to be pretty happy with this pick. It's a normal DT1.
It's just the DT1 you just want. Like any map pooler would just do this if they're just running out of ideas. And yeah,
I don't know about that. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen this pick. It's been a while since I've seen this
really
pick. Yeah. It's been a bit. And this was popular back in like 2020, I want to say, as like a mid-stage DT1. But it's been a while since I've seen it used anywhere. Yeah, not a lot else to say about this pick. It's a little bursty. I mean, you have some 7-note bursts here and there, but they're only 234 BPM, so the speed requirement is not super high in this pick. And yeah, I really don't have a lot else to add about this map. There's not much left to say about it. DT pool is pretty standard here. You're looking at 3 speed maps, including the DT1, outside of, it's aim speed in this case, but still. And then we'll have our last speed pick in the 3 mod pool, as one does in 2023, I suppose.
All right, DT1 down. We're finally done with DT1. DT2. Now we are going to another speed pick. I'm pretty sure this is the speed pick, or else
this is like the stamina and like
this is the
control pick in double time here. If you don't know this map already, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you just haven't been paying attention to tournaments for the last couple of years. Just generally speaking, not you in particular, but like. People who don't know this map have just not been paying attention to open rank tournaments for a while. This is a super famous speed map, Mirage Coordinator by ZTS, mapped by Mirage. This is not Data ZTS, it is Mirage ZTS, which is honestly about the same. Plays about the same as Data ZTS. You've got streams, you've got bursts, you've got finger control, light doubles and quads all over the place in this map. And I don't think any like 1/6 bursts that make this map kind of unplayable for some players. Like those would be, 330 something BPM. Oh nope, there's one. There's a quad.
Yep, there was.
That's like 330 BPM or something like that. So be careful with those. Make sure you mash. And yeah, that's about it though. Those are probably the only places where if you're a normal speed player, you're gonna drop a little bit of ack is on those quads. All of the rest of this is very, very straightforward.
Yeah, just all the stamina, finger control, just like you said, and nothing too special about this DT2. Oh, is that a 1/6, bro?
I don't think so. I think that was all just 1/4. I think that was fine. Thanks again to Not Eternum, the replayer, for the replay. One thing to note about ZTS map like this is a lot of times there is more so that focus on finger control than on long stream stamina. This is definitely one of the ones where that is the case, where you get a lot more doubles and quads and finger control in this map than you do long streams. So this is less of a stamina pick and more of like a speed finger control type DT2. I don't know if that's going to be the meta throughout the entire tournament, but it is made up for a little bit by the free mod pick, which is way more burst and stream focused.
This DT2 is pretty long. I think it's as long as the Nomads. Longer than Nomad 1, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, this is 3 minutes 40 seconds of drain time. This is the longest map by drain time in the normal map pool. Longest map outside of tiebreaker by drain time. But yeah, this one's a tournament classic. It gets Omega buffed on new star rating to almost 7 stars. Go farm it, I guess, if this is PP for you. It's very farm. None of these patterns are super hard for the star rating. So, yeah.
Pretty easy ending here. Just check your leaderboards, see if you won, see if you lost, see if you have to spin to win. And we're going to Sun. Oh my goodness, that's a chokeable.
And don't miss the last note of the last triple of the map. Also, don't do that. Don't do
that. All right, it's time to sunset DT2, and it's time to check out DT3. We got the Internet Girl song. I'm not gonna say it. Anyways, this is speed. We got the 263 BPM speed map. That was very bursty. Everywhere you go, there will be a burst. Burst here, burst there, like pretty much like every millisecond.
I think for a lot of speed players, and I know this sounds weird looking at this map, but I think for a lot of speed players, this is actually going to be one of the easiest maps in the pool. And I know it doesn't look that easy for non-speed players looking at this right now, but like none of these bursts get particularly long. You have breaks in between all of them with these kind of lighter aim sections, and there's not a lot of like sections where you get just tons of consecutive bursts back and forth. Most of them are on top of sliders also, which makes them significantly easier. So I think for a lot of speed players, this is going to be relatively simple and straightforward. But if you're not a speed player, I think you're going to suck on this map. That's for sure. Teams without a full speed roster are going to be hurting on this map because sections like this are really where the difficulty picks up. You can see now a lot of the bursts are not on top of sliders or right next to other jumps, for example, which is way, way more difficult than what you saw during the Ki time before that.
Some of these bursts go into like consecutive single tap patterns, and that could really hurt non-speed player stamina a lot. You're not done the map because this is also a pretty long pick as well. No, it's not. 2 minutes and around 10 seconds is the drain time, and yeah, 263 BPM. Just you're gonna be your speedy players. Don't get speed abused that hard, guys. Ban this if you need to.
Yeah. I don't know. Not a lot else to add to this. It's very, very recent upload by Kipalt. At least the AR8 difficulty is. I think this was previous upload for something else. I don't even think. I think actually it wasn't even for a tournament or anything. It's just a normal upload. So yeah, good luck on this pick. If you are not a speed team, if you don't have a full speed roster, this one's going to be pretty difficult. But for teams with a full speed roster, I think this is going to be really, really simple, straightforward, and really high average score among the best teams in the tournament. And with that, we get into a not super simple and straightforward map into the free mod pool. Free mod 1. Going to be a more tech alt focused map here. Azure Vixen by Camellia, the CS 3.8 difficulty, and this is a custom map for Resurrection Cup, mapped by Livia. Thank you, Livia, very much for this map.
Thank you so much. Now we're gonna see a Hard Rock replay, and now I'm pretty sure this map is pretty Hard Rock favored. As we're gonna see throughout this entire map. I'm pretty sure this is more techy than Nomad 4, which is kind of weird, but hey, what you gotta do, what you gotta do.
Yeah, notably this has a lot more of a flow aim focus than Nomad 4 as well. Like you can see already a lot of really high spacing streams, a lot of really tough sliders. But the thing that makes this potentially a little bit Hard Rock favored is the fact that it's AR9 and CS 3.8. So might be a little bit Hard Rock favored, or we might be underestimating how hard it is on Hard Rock with all of the aim control, because it's not exactly easy with Hard Rock.
Yep.
But the reading requirements on Hidden for this, as well as just how difficult Hidden can make flow aim on AR9, will still make it very, very difficult on that model. So I think very obviously the easiest way to play this is no mod. So make sure your no mod players are really solid on this map and put a couple of your best players on your mods so that everybody can get a really good score.
We're halfway done the map, and we're just slowly getting into the more intense Ki right here, I think. And Camellia is just always going to produce such bangers. Like, if I don't see your heads bopping during this song, we're gonna have some problems.
More of a finger control focus here in the end. You have a lot of quads on 1/6 in the ending. in addition to the really heavy flow aim requirement. Once again, more isolated slider aim requirement in this map to keep a lot of the skill sets a little bit separate, so it's not overloading you with everything all at once, all the hard stuff. But still a very difficult map. Really nice replay by Defi, only the slider break so far, right near the end. And this is going to kind of be your mashup pick for all of the more technical skill sets. Tech, alt, finger control, reading, kind of all in one map with this one.
It's just a mix of all your wonderful skills into one beautiful tech map. Anyways, free mod 1 finished, and now we're going straight into our second free mod map, which is going to be sorry about my face, L4D.
This is another custom map in this pool, free mod 2, mapped by Fergus. And once again, one of the free mod picks. This one I think is unequivocally hard rock favored. This is CS3 AR9 speed. It is OD8, so no mod and hidden players will have that going for them. But I think if you can play 211 BPM, which is not that much of a BPM gate at all, you're going to be much more comfortable on hard rock for this. It's not even CS4, it's CS 3.9 after hard rock. So I think this is a really hard rock favored map on the free mod pool, which is going to be very obviously made up for by free mod 3 being super hidden favorite. We'll get to that shortly. But yeah, this is your other quote-unquote speed map. 211 BPM is pretty low BPM for a speedier pick in this pool. So I say speed with a little bit of a grain of salt, more so a stamina and burst pick than anything else.
I pretty much covered everything about this map right here.
Are you a fan of Fergus maps, Exia?
Yes, I like them.
All right, what's the Fergus style? Is this the classic Fergus style?
Not so that I remember. I like his mapping. Like, I played a lot of I think speed maps when I was playing my tournaments, but I haven't played many that I have like a good handle on his mapping style.
Fair enough. I think this is a little bit more like flow aim focused than what I usually see from Fergus, although it is lower BPM too, so that might have something to do with it. I think what I usually see from Fergus is way more like consecutive bursts all over the place, lots of triples and lower spacing on the streams themselves. More about like jump and burst consistency, but this one during the harder parts of the map does have a pretty heavy flow aim focus, honestly, on some of the streams.
Yeah, very consistent throughout the entire map. These patterns do show up quite a bit, and yeah. Free mod 2. It's another AR9 map, right? Yeah, except it's just a hard rock favorite since the circle size is at 3.
Yeah, I think a lot of players on the top teams, especially, are going to be overmodding hard rock on something like this because it's AR9. I think if this were AR 9.5 or 9.6, somewhere around there, there'd be a lot more no mod taken on this pick, but this is definitely going to see a lot of overmodding hard rock. Unlike the next map. This next map is probably going to see as few mods as possible. Hidden and no mod favored. It's Endless Tears by Ayane, the demonized difficulty map by Paradogi. It's an interesting map, and I'm so surprised that Defi did the hard rock replay for this. This is AR8 CS5 with OD as well.
They got the hard rock replay. Oh my goodness. I expected a hidden replay. And also, we didn't even get a hidden replay for any of the free mods. They were all hard rock.
Yeah, we got 0 hidden replays for the free mod pool. That's funny.
Anyways, this is some old map style map. We got a lot of linear patterns, some far widescreen sliders, and that will pretty much ruin all your combo hopes and dreams, everything you build up to that point.
Yeah, specifically grid snapped old mapping style. More modern take on what used to be extremely common back in like 2008, 2009 with the grid snapping. Not really done all that often anymore, and you can see here why we thought it was probably going to be hidden and no mod favored, because the aim requirement on Hard Rock for this map is absolutely bonkers. This goes up to 6.7 stars after Hard Rock, which is higher star rating than the Hard Rock 2. Higher star rating than the Hard Rock 1, actually, also for this map, as an aim CS 6.5 pick, which is really hard to do. And the base star rating for this map is 5.8 stars, and there's not really any overlaps or anything that make this really difficult to read on Hidden or No Mod, so I think we're going to see very little overmodding on this map, and a lot of people going No Mod and Hidden to try and get the max amount of score, and probably one player tanking the Hard Rock for some of the lower seeded teams on this map, because, man, the aim on this is hard.
It's just the 6.5 circle size that makes it a Hard Rock 2. It's just a harder Hard Rock 2 than what we have right now. And that just covers all the free mods and all the pools, but what we have left is our wonderful tiebreaker. Dio, take it away.
We do have one map left. It is the tiebreaker, and we were given no info about the tiebreaker as the commentators, so it is a surprise for all of us. And generally speaking, when you are not given information about a tiebreaker as a commentator in a tournament, it usually only means one thing. Let's see the tiebreaker. And that is the first custom song of many to come. So thank you very much to Normal M for our first custom song of the tournament, first custom tiebreaker in a round of 32. And thank you to Himada for the custom map of that song as well. What a banger. I'm ready for round of 32. Thank you to everybody for watching the showcase, as well as good luck to our top 32 teams who qualified into the round of 32. Exia, anything else to add before we sign off?
Good luck to all the teams. Practice your map pools, don't sight read, and do not underperform your practice scores.
And that'll be it for us. Thanks a bunch to HoaQ for streaming, despite it being 4:30 in the morning. And we will see you all this coming weekend for the round of 32. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.